Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The position and the agenda of government of reducing the cost of living has actually created a very important aspect that, of course, the issue about the cost of living have also synced in the ears of public civil servants. And we have mentioned many times that the Kenyan people are a bit uncomfortable with William Ruto's start because the problem is not on the fact that pledges cannot be redeemed, but that some pledges were unrealistic and could not be achieved within the timeline, even though they were packaged with a lot of hopes. The biggest image bearers, most critical image bearers of government are actually the 700,000 civil servants we came out of divisive elections, and even people who were in government, some were unhappy with the outcome. And not even some. Actually, what normally happens out here, the voting demographic out here is also the same way it cuts across even government civil servants. And coupled with a perception that first few days of William Ruto's reign is an image of a failed government, there is more that is worrying. I just want to play for you a snippet, some video here that I want to watch that video. But before that, did you realize that in one of my videos I mentioned that this is just a sidebar. Giving people fertilizers was never a guarantee that we were going to have maximum output from the farms. Immediately we gave fertilizers, our countries have had a challenge of rains, and we now have to struggle with something in the drought. So we gave fertilizers and we don't have rains. I'm just telling you Kenyans that at the right time, when you will need whatever's come from the farm to reduce the price of unga, you'll be told we took fertilizers, but we did not get a big output because there was no rainfall. Mark this analysis. We will one day revisit that when God gives us life. Now, I want you to watch this clip because it actually tells you, it's a very comical one, but it's really what Kenyans are saying.
Tumerudi hapa tena kwa sababu ya ile mipango ambaye tulikuwa tumepanga. Tulikuja hapa na tukakubaliana ya kwamba mtatupatia kura na mkasema mtatupatia. Si tulikubaliana namna hiyo? Na si mnaona ni mimi rais? Ni nyinyi mlitupatia. Si tulikuja hapa tukasema bottom up. Ni nyinyi hamukuelewa vile tulikuwa tunamaanisha. Tulimaanisha namna hii, tutatoa vitu kwa bei ya chini tupeleke kwa bei ya juu. Si mnaona serikali imeanza kufanya kazi na hawa vijana ya bodaboda, tukasema tutasaidia hao. Si mnaona vile ni wengi, si mnaona vile wanaanguka kwa barabara hovyo hovyo. Tukaona tupandishe mafuta ndio wawache hiyo biashara, watafute kazi nyingine. Na bado hata hii mama mboga hii inaleta shilingi 2 kwa serikali. Tulikuwa tumemwambia tutampatia wheelbarrow, sio kutandika hii vitu kwa barabara kila wakati. Si namna hiyo? Si tunakubaliana namna hiyo my friend? Na sasa iko vijana wanasema sijui William ulituambia utatupatia shilingi bilioni 60. Mimi nauliza nyinyi, wewe uliona wapi pesa ya bure? My friend, hata hiyo kazi kwa vijana hakuna kitu kama hiyo. Hii kazi mtaani, mwende mkatafute mjengo. Si sawa sawa? Tunakubaliana namna hiyo? Si hata unga ikifika shilingi 500, si Mungu iko?
I watched that clip and you can just laugh around the way that guy is playing around with the words. What we have gathered so far is that Aisha Jumwa, who is the CS in charge of public service and gender affairs, in her first day in office, have revealed a plan by government to increase the pay of civil servants in the next 100 days. Hey, whoa. Good news for someone who is in government, civil servant. Kama ulikuwa unafikiria kwenda kuchukua kazi ni private sector so that you join government, this is the good news for you, that government wants to increase your pay. It's a welcome call. It's a welcome call for government to acknowledge that things are not right, and also even the middle class. I don't believe there are many hustlers working in government. A teacher, the majority of civil servants are teachers, by the way. They're the ones that are in the tune of 300,000. Then I think after teachers, we also have the men in uniform, the police, and that. I don't think there are many hustlers. Maybe hustlers are interns who are in government. So it's addressing something that is there. And in light of this, I want to tell you why William Ruto had to take that position. Of course, everyone deserves a decent pay, and it's equally needed, and it's in order. But in this video, I want to tell you what that will achieve and why that seems to have been hatched. And when I did my analysis on a pronouncement by Moses Kuria on Mitumba Ban, someone said, Kevin, you got it wrong, that's about Moses Kuria, it's about the president saying. So what Aisha Jumwa is saying, is signaling, is it needs a very big funding, especially in terms of a wage bill, that I don't think without an input or without direction from President William Ruto, she can just come out and make such a statement, or rather give such a promise of increasing our government pay. That must have the blessings of President William Samoei Ruto. And I want to agree with people who say that some of these things ministers are saying, and we are finding them talking about them. It's not just about them talking. They're actually representing the voice of President William Samoei Ruto. This is needed. Ruto is looking for an impact for people in government. As I mentioned, we came from a divisive election, and amongst civil servants, almost 50-50 or 60-40. Those who were with Raila, the other team that were with that maybe was supporting William Ruto. And these differences plays out in the offices. If you talk to people who are civil servants, you would agree kwamba even after elections, watu hawako wanaongea. Someone could not talk to the other simply because, it's not that they can't work, but politics is very emotive. That's one thing I've always realized. So Ruto has known that and has realized that the workforce is demotivated. It is demotivated because of unmet expectations. And the number that is demotivated vis-a-vis the number that is motivated, maybe they have done their research and have realized that a majority of people who were in government did not support William Ruto. And this is not magical science to know. Government have this data. This data is available. You will know in terms of tribal representation, maybe it's tribe X ni wangapi, tribes Y ni wangapi, and days. You make a research and just know that we have unhappy workforce. Unhappy workforce, you might have realized that workforce might have supported the other candidate. You just know. So the president has realized that the workforce is actually inheriting did not subscribe to his ideals. So you need to give them some short-term excitement, and this will help them to see a difference between William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. This is very key, because the internal rebellion can be very dangerous if you have a workforce that do not really support the government of the day, that they do not own that government. It's like running a company by a bunch of people who do not really subscribe to the vision and the mission of that business. It's actually, it's very difficult, and it will jeopardize what will be the legacy of the president. It would actually make the government be very porous. When you have people who do not really back you fully, they will be feeding. There will be a lot of information going out even to your political opponents. So what William Ruto is doing is trying to consolidate and bring that team together. In fact, someone was, shall not mention the name, that the State House staff were not changed. Yeah, quite a number of them were still there. And this is needed so that people don't feel like we're not part of this. It should be, there should be an element of continuity. So that short-term staff excitement is needed, at least people to feel a change. But then I see Ruto technically trying to address a specific demographic that was never given a key attention in the abandoned bottoms up economic model, the middle class. I've always asked why you have spoken about Hustler Fund reaching out to people to support their businesses. Of course, fine, and that will lower. Maybe, and actually, in that, you're simply talking to people in business. And not everyone is in business. So there are teachers who do not own businesses. There are doctors who are not into, they're not into the small businesses of mama mboga. Like you can't find a secondary school teacher selling mama mboga pale sako na hiyo biashara kama side hustle. Of course, you will have a bigger business, maybe running a some boda bike somewhere there. So what I have always gathered is that William Ruto is finally addressing the middle class. The middle class needs to have enough money so that they can afford. And and if you ask me, Ruto has focused on production economy, fine. But I think you also need to look at consumption in the way that you can have all that produce, but if we don't have the money to buy, all that produce will go to waste, or we will change priorities. So if you bring all the maize and we don't have the money, and rice is at a lower price, we will leave the maize and go for another product. So as much as we look at affordability or availability of surplus goods in the market, we should also look at the pockets of the buyer, that our pockets should be fine so that we can buy. And of course, in fact, when people have money, they will not complain about the prices because they can afford. Now, this is a very good conversation for me about the salary because it will explode to the private sector, which may help improve the life of the Kenyan worker. I hope it's being done in good faith. They give it a holistic approach. It starts off from government and then it will spill off to the private sector. And before you know, a legislative framework is coming on minimum wage for someone in the public service and also someone in the private sector. It will be so much good. And in fact, I wish it's also taken to the private sector because that's where people are being exploited. If you really run tests of people of how private employers are really exploiting people, you will really get shocked by the revelation of people from the private sector. So I take this in a very positive note, and let's see if William Ruto means well for it. But it's another political PR stunt.